Women, when did your heart completely break? My number one dream in life was always to adopt. Ever since I was a little girl, I dreamed of giving a home to children who needed one, reading bedtime stories to kids who'd never had them, being the safe adult they could trust. That dream came true 3 years ago. I adopted siblings, Mason, 7, and Ella, 5. They'd been through 4 foster homes. The night I brought them home, Mason wouldn't let go of Ella's hand, and she whispered, "Is this really our house?" I promised them they'd never have to leave again. My husband Tom seemed perfect at first. He'd bought bunk beds, painted their rooms, even learned to braid Ella's hair. But within 3 months, everything changed. It started subtly. Tom would forget to pick them up from school, accidentally eat their special snacks, make jokes about sending them back if they misbehaved. The kids would freeze, terrified they'd lose another home. Then came the night Tom crossed the line. Mason had wet the bed, normal for traumatized children. Tom dragged him out of bed at 2 a.m. screaming, "Foster kids come broken. This is why nobody wanted you." I found Mason in the bathroom, scrubbing his sheets in the tub, sobbing. "Please don't send us back. I'll be better." My heart shattered. I held him tight. "Never. You're never leaving." Tom escalated. He'd lock Ella in the closet for crying too loud, made Mason stand in the corner for hours, started telling them I didn't really want them, that I was looking for better kids. The breaking point came when I installed hidden cameras. I caught Tom on video telling the kids, "Your real mom is coming to get you tomorrow. Start packing." They were hysterical, begging him not to make them leave. He laughed. I took the kids and left that night. Stayed in a hotel. Filed for divorce and a restraining order. Tom fought dirty. Claimed I was mentally unstable, that foster kids were too much for me, that he was the stable one. Then Ella said her first full sentence to me. We were coloring when she looked up and whispered, "Don't let him take us." That's when I learned Tom had been coaching them. If anyone asked, they were to say I hit them, that I didn't feed them. He'd made them practice the lies, threatening to separate them if they didn't comply. Mason finally broke down and told me everything. Tom had been documenting fake injuries, taking photos when they had normal kid bruises, planning to use their foster history against me. "Nobody believes foster kids," Tom had told them. "You're damaged goods." Court was brutal. Tom's lawyer portrayed me as a naive woman who couldn't handle troubled children. Brought up every therapy appointment as proof they were too damaged for me to parent. But then Mason did something incredible. He stood up in court, just 7 years old, and said, "She's the only adult who ever kept promises. Please don't take us away." The judge granted me temporary custody, but ordered supervised visits with Tom. The first visit, Tom told them I was dying of cancer, that they'd be alone soon. Ella didn't speak for a week after. I spent every penny on lawyers, therapy, fighting for them. We moved apartments 3 times because Tom kept finding us. The kids slept in my bed, terrified he'd take them while they slept. Finally, after 18 months, Tom made a mistake. He violated the restraining order, showed up at Ella's school claiming to be her father. Security footage caught him trying to grab her. He was arrested. The adoption was finalized with me as their sole parent. The night it was official, both kids cried. Not sad tears, relief. Mason is 10 now. Ella is 8. Last week, Mason made me a Mother's Day card that said, "Thank you for fighting the monster for us." But yesterday, I got a call that changed everything. Tom's lawyer. Tom had been digging into the kids' past, found their biological mother. She'd cleaned up, wanted them back, and Tom was funding her legal battle just to hurt me. The woman who'd lost them to foster care was now claiming I'd stolen her babies. And because biological parents have rights, even after abandonment, she might win. Mason heard the phone call. He looked at me with those same terrified eyes from 3 years ago. "She's not our mom. You are." I dropped to my knees right there in the hallway and wrapped my arms around both of them. Mason's fingers dig into my shirt so hard I can feel his nails through the fabric. Ella makes these tiny gasping sounds that barely count as crying. I keep my voice steady, even though my hands are shaking. "Nobody is taking you anywhere. We're a family. I will fight with everything I have to keep us together." Mason's whole body is rigid against mine. Ella's tears soak through my shoulder, but she doesn't make a sound. I hold them until Mason's grip loosens just a little. I hold them until Ella's breathing slows down. I hold them until my knees ache from kneeling on the floor. Getting them to bed takes forever. Mason won't let go of Ella's hand. Ella won't let go of mine. I end up sitting between their beds in the dark, one hand on each of them, humming the lullaby I sang when they first came home. When Mason finally falls asleep, his face is still tight with worry. When Ella's breathing evens out, her fingers are still twisted in my sleeve. I wait another 20 minutes to make sure they're really asleep. Then I ease out of their room and close the door most of the way. My phone is on the kitchen counter where I dropped it after that call. I pick it up and scroll through my contacts until I find the name my friend Rachel gave me months ago. Kathy Fletcher, family law attorney. Rachel said Kathy was tough and smart and didn't back down from a fight. I hit call before I can think too much about what time it is. The phone rings 4 times. I'm about to hang up when someone answers. Kathy agrees to see me first thing tomorrow morning. She tells me to bring everything: adoption papers, court documents from the divorce, the restraining order against Tom, any records from the kids' therapy, any proof I have of Tom's abuse. I write it all down on a notepad, even though my hand is shaking so bad the words come out crooked. After we hang up, I go to the filing cabinet in my bedroom closet. I pull out every folder that might matter: adoption finalization papers, child welfare reports, school records showing Mason and Ella's progress, letters from their teachers, report cards, medical records. I spread it all out on my bed and start organizing. This stack for adoption documents, this stack for Tom's abuse, this stack for the kids' stability and progress. It takes me 3 hours to get everything sorted and copied and organized into labeled folders. My alarm clock says 2:47 a.m. I should sleep, but my brain won't shut off. What if the judge doesn't care that I've been their mom for 3 years? What if biology matters more than love? What if Tom's money can buy a better lawyer than I can afford? I lie down on top of the covers with all the folders around me. I close my eyes, but I don't sleep. The next morning, I drop Mason and Ella at the school early and drive straight to Kathy's office downtown. The building is older but clean. Her office is on the 3rd floor. The waiting room has magazines and a water cooler and a receptionist who smiles at me like she can tell I haven't slept. Kathy comes out to get me herself. She's maybe 50 with gray hair pulled back and sharp eyes that take in everything. Her office has a big desk covered in papers and a wall of law books. She points me to a chair and sits down across from me. I hand her the folders one by one. She goes through everything slowly. She reads the adoption papers twice. She studies the restraining order documents. She takes notes on a yellow legal pad. She asks me questions about Tom, about Nina, about how the kids are doing, about their therapy, about everything. When she's done reading, she leans back in her chair. Biological parents have significant legal rights, even after abandonment, even after years of absence. The law favors reunification when possible. But my adoption is finalized. That gives me strong legal standing. The court's primary concern will be what's best for Mason and Ella. Not what Tom wants, not what Nina wants. What's best for the children. She's worried about Tom's involvement, his financial resources, the fact that he's funding Nina's case. That shows this isn't really about Nina wanting her kids back. It's about Tom using Nina as a weapon to hurt me. We need to expose that to the court. Show the judge that Tom is manipulating the situation for revenge. We spend 2 hours going over strategy. Kathy explains the process. First, she'll file a response to Nina's petition. Then she'll request a guardian ad litem. That's someone the court appoints to represent the children's interests independently. Someone who will talk to Mason and Ella and make recommendations based on what they want and need. She knows a good one. Paul Snyder. He's fair and thorough, and the judges trust him. The whole process could take 4 to 6 months. Maybe longer if Tom drags it out. 6 months feels like forever. 6 months of the kids living in fear. 6 months of not knowing if our family will survive. Kathy must see something in my face because she reaches across the desk and touches my hand. We're going to fight this. You're not alone. I leave her office with a payment plan for her fees and a list of things I need to do. Get statements from the kids' teachers. Get a letter from their therapist. Document our daily routines. Keep records of everything. I sit in my car in the parking garage for 10 minutes just breathing. Then I drive to work and try to focus on my job like my whole world isn't falling apart. 2 days later, I'm cleaning up breakfast dishes when someone knocks on the apartment door. Mason and Ella are already at the school. I open the door and find a woman in business casual clothes holding a clipboard. She introduces herself as a social worker. She's here for a home evaluation as part of the custody case. I wasn't expecting her. My apartment is clean but not perfect. There are dishes in the sink. Ella's backpack is on the couch. Mason's shoes are by the door. The social worker smiles and says this is fine. She wants to see how we really live, not some staged version. I walk her through the apartment. The kids' room with their bunk beds and the stuffed animals on Ella's pillow and Mason's drawings taped to the wall. The bathroom with their toothbrushes in the holder. The kitchen with their artwork covering the fridge. Our family photos everywhere. The 3 of us at the zoo, at the park, at Mason's baseball game. She asks questions while she takes notes. What time do the kids get up? What do we eat for breakfast? Who takes them to the school? What do we do after school? How are they doing in their classes? Do they have friends? Do they do activities? What's our bedtime routine? How often do they see their therapist? How are they handling the custody case? I answer everything as honestly as I can. Yes, Mason has been having nightmares again. Yes, Ella has been more clingy. Yes, they're scared. But they're doing well in the school. They have friends. Mason plays baseball. Ella takes art classes. They see their therapist every week. They're happy here. They're safe here. This is their home. The social worker writes everything down. She takes pictures of the apartment. She looks at the kids' school papers on the fridge. She opens the pantry and sees it stocked with food. She checks the kids' closet and sees they have plenty of clothes. She's professional, but not cold. When she leaves, she tells me I'll hear from her office soon. The following week, I meet with Paul Snyder at a coffee shop near his office. He's younger than I expected. Maybe 40 with kind eyes and a firm handshake. He explains his role. He's not working for me or for Nina. He's working for Mason and Ella. His job is to figure out what's best for them and recommend that to the court. He'll be talking to the kids individually, observing them at the school, reviewing their therapy records, talking to their teachers. He wants to understand their daily lives and their relationships and their feelings about everything. He's direct but not harsh. He asks about Tom's abuse, about the divorce, about how the adoption happened, about Nina's history. I give him copies of all the therapy records from Thea Carrillo, 3 years of progress notes, documentation of Mason's nightmares after Tom's abuse, Ella's anxiety, their attachment to me, their fear of abandonment, their current stability. Paul reads through the notes carefully. He asks good questions. He takes his time. When we're done, he tells me he'll be in touch after he talks to the kids. 2 weeks after that first phone call, I walk into the courthouse feeling sick. The building is old and imposing with high ceilings and marble floors. People in suits walk past carrying briefcases. Lawyers talk to clients in hushed voices. I find the right courtroom and sit on a bench outside to wait for Kathy. Then I see her. Nina. She's standing near the doors with a man in an expensive suit. Luke Monahan, Tom's lawyer. Nina is younger than I expected. Maybe 30. Thin with dark hair and nervous hands. She's wearing a dress that looks new. She keeps touching her hair and looking around like she doesn't want to be here. Seeing her face makes everything real in a way it wasn't before. This woman gave birth to Mason and Ella. This woman lost them because of her choices. This woman wants them back now. I don't know if I hate her or pity her or both. Kathy arrives and we go inside. The courtroom is smaller than I expected. The judge is a woman with gray hair and reading glasses. She listens while both lawyers present their cases. Luke talks about biological bonds and second chances and Nina's recovery. Kathy talks about stability and attachment and the children's best interests. The judge sets a timeline. Evaluations need to be completed within 6 weeks. Discovery will continue. She schedules another hearing in 2 months. And she orders a supervised visitation for Nina to see Mason and Ella in 4 weeks. Just one visit. 2 hours. At a neutral facility with a social worker present. Nina looks relieved. I feel like I might throw up. Kathy squeezes my arm and whispers that this is normal. Expected. The judge has to allow some contact. It doesn't mean anything is decided. That night, I have to tell Mason and Ella. We sit on the couch in the living room. I try to explain it gently. Their biological mother wants to see them. The court says she can. Just for a little while. Just to visit. It doesn't mean anything is decided. It doesn't mean they have to leave me. Mason's face goes white. His voice comes out small and scared. Does this mean we have to go back to her? Ella starts breathing too fast. Her chest heaves. Her eyes go wide. I pull them both close. No. No. You're not going anywhere. This is just a visit. I'll be right there in the building the whole time. You're safe. You're staying with me. We end up in an emergency session with Thea that same night. She helps them understand that seeing Nina doesn't mean the court has made a decision, that they can meet her without it changing anything about our family, that it's okay to be scared and confused, that I'll be there to keep them safe. But Mason has nightmares that night, and the next night, and the night after that. A few days later, Kathy calls me with news. She's been going through the legal discovery, looking at financial records, and she found something. Tom has been paying for everything. Nina's lawyer, her apartment, her recovery program, all of it, for 6 months, since before she even filed the custody petition. This proves what we suspected. Tom isn't helping Nina out of kindness. He's using her, funding her case as a way to hurt me, to threaten the thing I love most, to take Mason and Ella away from me. Nina is just his weapon. Kathy files a motion to expose Tom's financial involvement to the court, to show the judge his motivation, to prove this custody case isn't really about Nina wanting her children. It's about Tom's revenge. 4 weeks after that courthouse hearing, I drive Mason and Ella to a building across town. It's a family services center. Neutral. Safe. There are toys in the lobby and cheerful paintings on the walls. A social worker meets us and explains how this will work. She'll be in the room the whole time. I'll be in the lobby. The visit will last 90 minutes. Mason holds Ella's hand so tight his knuckles turn white. Ella won't look at me. I kneel down in front of them. You're safe. I'm right here. If you need me, just tell the social worker and I'll come get you. This is just a visit. You're coming home with me after. They disappear through a door with the social worker. I sit in the lobby and watch the clock. 90 minutes feels like forever. I can't read the magazine I picked up. I can't focus on my phone. I just sit there feeling like I might throw up. When the door finally opens, Mason and Ella come out holding hands. They're quiet, confused. Mason won't meet my eyes. Ella walks straight to me and wraps her arms around my waist and doesn't let go. In the car, Mason finally talks. She kept calling herself our real mom. She said we belonged with her, that we were supposed to be with her, that she's better now and everything will be different. Ella doesn't say anything at all. She just sits in the back seat holding my hand through the gap between the seats. When we get home, she follows me from room to room. She won't let me out of her sight. She clings to me like she's 5 years old again and just came home for the first time. That night, both kids sleep in my bed. Mason has nightmares. Ella cries in her sleep. I lie awake between them and wonder how much more of this they can take. Over the next few days, Mason stops sleeping through the night. The first time he wakes up screaming, I run to his room and find him sitting up in bed, eyes wide and terrified. He's breathing too fast and gripping his blanket so hard his hands shake. I sit beside him and pull him close. He won't tell me what the nightmare was about at first. Just keeps saying he's sorry over and over. Eventually he whispers that he dreamed Nina took them away, and I couldn't find them. That they were in a strange house and I was looking everywhere but couldn't hear them calling for me. I hold him until he falls back asleep, but it takes almost an hour. The second night, it happens again. The third night, Ella wakes up from his crying and starts crying too. By the fourth night, both kids are sleeping in my bed again, pressed against me on either side. I barely sleep myself because every time one of them moves, I wake up to make sure they're okay. Mason's teacher calls me at work on Tuesday afternoon. She sounds worried. Mason got into an argument during lunch with another boy in his class. The other kid said something about real parents and fake parents, and Mason lost it. Started yelling that I am his real parent, that biology doesn't matter, that being there every day is what makes someone real. The teacher had to separate them before it turned into a physical fight. She tells me Mason has been distracted all week, not finishing his work, staring out the window during lessons. She asks if everything is okay at home. I explain about the custody situation as briefly as I can. She's sympathetic but concerned. She suggests Mason might benefit from talking to the school counselor. I agree and tell her I'll discuss it with his therapist. That night, I try to talk to Mason about what happened at the school. He won't look at me. Just sits on the couch picking at a loose thread on the cushion. Finally, he says the other kid told him that adopted kids aren't really part of their families, that real families are made of blood. Mason's voice cracks when he tells me this. He asks if that's true. If Nina has more right to him than I do because she gave birth to him. I kneel in front of him and take his hands. I tell him that family is made by love and showing up every single day, not by who gave birth to who. That I chose him and Ella and I keep choosing them every morning when I wake up. That Nina might have given birth to them, but I'm the one who's been their mom for 3 years. He nods, but I can see he's still scared. Still wondering if the court will decide blood matters more than everything else. Watching him struggle with this makes me so angry I want to scream. This legal battle is destroying the security we spent 3 years building. Paul shows up at the kids' school the following Monday to do his interviews. The principal called me the week before to let me know it was scheduled. I'm not allowed to be there. Paul needs to talk to Mason and Ella alone so they can speak freely without worrying about what I'll think. I drop them off that morning and Mason's hand is ice cold when he hugs me goodbye. Ella won't let go of my coat. I have to gently pry her fingers loose and promise I'll be right here when school ends. The day drags by. I can't focus on anything at work. I keep checking my phone even though I know Paul won't call until after school. I imagine Mason and Ella sitting in some office being asked questions about me, about Nina, about what they want. I wonder if they're scared. If they think saying the wrong thing will make them lose their home. At 3:30, my phone finally rings. Paul's name shows up on the screen. My hands shake so badly I almost drop the phone before I answer. He tells me he just finished the interviews and wanted to give me a quick update. Both children were clear and consistent about wanting to stay with me. Mason told him I'm the only adult who ever kept promises to him. That I said I'd never send them back and I didn't, even when things got hard with Tom. That I fought for them when nobody else would. Paul says Mason was articulate and thoughtful, much more so than most 10-year-olds. Ella didn't talk as much, but she drew a picture during the interview. Paul describes it to me. It shows 3 people holding hands outside a house. Me in the middle, Mason on one side, Ella on the other. She labeled it, "My Family," in her careful printing. Nina wasn't in the picture. Neither was Tom. Just the 3 of us. Paul's voice is sympathetic, but professional when he tells me this will factor heavily into his recommendation to the court. That the children's wishes aren't the only consideration, but they matter, especially when those wishes are this clear and consistent. I thank him and manage to hold it together until I hang up. Then I sit in my car in the work parking lot and cry with relief. At pickup, Mason walks out of school with his shoulders a little straighter. Ella runs to me and wraps her arms around my waist. Neither of them wants to talk about the interviews on the drive home. I don't push. We stop for ice cream instead and eat it in the park, watching other kids play on the swings. 2 days later, Kathy calls with bad news. Nina's lawyer filed a motion requesting expanded visitation. The motion claims the children need more time to reconnect with their biological mother and rebuild their relationship. It argues that one 90-minute visit isn't enough for Mason and Ella to truly get to know Nina again, that they need regular, longer visits to overcome the years of separation. Kathy sounds frustrated when she reads me parts of the filing. She says it's a standard move, but we need to fight it hard. She's already drafting our response. We'll present evidence of the children's increased anxiety following the first visit, Mason's nightmares, his behavior problems at the school, the regression we've seen at home. We'll argue that expanding visitation now, while they're already struggling, would be harmful. That any increase should wait until after the full evaluation is complete. The hearing is scheduled for next week. Kathy tells me to document everything between now and then. Every nightmare, every anxious behavior, every sign that the custody battle is affecting the kids. I start keeping a notebook by my bed. Write down each time Mason wakes up crying. Each time Ella has a meltdown over something small. Each time one of them asks if they're really safe or if they have to leave. The notebook fills up faster than I expected. At the hearing, Kathy presents our evidence to the judge. She shows the documented nightmares, the school reports about Mason's behavior, a letter from their therapist explaining the impact this is having on both children. Nina's lawyer argues that the children's distress is temporary, that it will improve once they have more regular contact with their mother, that the anxiety comes from uncertainty, not from Nina herself. The judge listens to both sides. Then she orders a second supervised visit but denies the request for expanded time. She says the evaluation needs to be completed first, that we need more information about what's actually in the children's best interest before making major changes to the visitation schedule. It's a small victory, but I'll take it. Kathy squeezes my shoulder as we leave the courthouse. She reminds me this isn't over, that Nina's lawyer will probably file another motion after the evaluation is done. But for now, we've bought some time. That night, I can't fall asleep. I lie in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through everything that could go wrong. The what-ifs pile up until I can barely breathe. What if the judge decides biology matters more than stability? What if Nina's progress in recovery convinces the court to give her another chance? What if Tom's money buys enough legal firepower to take my kids away? I get up and check on Mason and Ella. They're both asleep in their beds finally, after weeks of needing to sleep in my room. Mason's face is peaceful for once. Ella's clutching her stuffed rabbit. I stand in their doorway and watch them breathe. At work the next day, I mess up a report I've done 100 times before. Transpose numbers in a spreadsheet. Miss a deadline for submitting paperwork. My boss notices. She calls me into her office after lunch and I'm sure I'm about to be fired. Instead, she closes the door and asks if I'm okay. I try to say yes, but my voice breaks. She hands me tissues and waits while I pull myself together enough to explain what's happening. The custody battle. The legal fees. The constant fear that I'm going to lose my children. She listens without interrupting. When I finish, she tells me the company has employee assistance benefits I can use. Flexible hours so I can attend court hearings and meetings with lawyers. Access to legal consultation services. She says I should have come to her sooner. That I don't have to handle this alone. Her kindness breaks something loose inside me. I cry right there in her office. Ugly crying that makes my whole body shake. She doesn't seem bothered, just pushes the tissue box closer and tells me to take the rest of the day off. To go home and be with my kids. That work will still be here tomorrow, but this is more important. The following week, Kathy calls with news about court-ordered evaluations. The judge wants psychological evaluations done for everyone involved. Me, Nina, and even Tom, since his financial involvement has been exposed. A forensic psychologist will evaluate each of us and submit reports to the court. The evaluation will include interviews, psychological testing, review of records, the whole process. My appointment is scheduled for the next Thursday. 3 hours blocked out in the middle of the day. I show up at the psychologist's office 15 minutes early because I'm too anxious to wait at home. The waiting room has bland artwork on the walls and magazines from 6 months ago. The psychologist is a woman in her 50s with gray hair and kind eyes. She introduces herself and leads me to her office. For the next 3 hours, she asks me questions about everything. My childhood, my relationship with Tom, why I wanted to adopt, how I parent Mason and Ella, what I do when they misbehave, how I handle their trauma responses, what my support system looks like. She asks about my mental health, my stress levels, my ability to cope with difficult situations. Some questions feel invasive. She wants to know about my sex life, my finances, whether I've ever used drugs or been arrested. I answer everything honestly even though it makes me uncomfortable. She gives me psychological tests, multiple choice questions about my personality, my emotional state, my coping mechanisms, scenarios where I have to choose how I'd respond. It's exhausting, and by the end I feel wrung out. She thanks me for my time and tells me she'll submit her report to the court within 2 weeks. I drive home feeling like I've been turned inside out. Every private part of my life examined and judged. But I understand why it's necessary. The court needs to know I'm stable enough to parent children with trauma histories, that I can handle the stress and complexity of their needs. 3 weeks later, Kathy calls me to come to her office. She has Nina's psychological evaluation results. I leave work early and drive downtown, my stomach in knots. Kathy's office is on the 3rd floor of an old building. Her desk is covered in files and her computer screen shows multiple open documents. She gestures for me to sit and slides a folder across the desk. Inside is a summary of Nina's evaluation. I read through it slowly. The psychologist found that Nina has made genuine progress in her recovery. She's been sober for 14 months, attends meetings 3 times a week, has a sponsor she talks to regularly. She's maintained steady employment as a waitress for the past 8 months, pays her rent on time, follows through on her commitments. The evaluation notes that Nina shows insight into her past mistakes, acknowledges the harm she caused Mason and Ella by her addiction and neglect, expresses genuine remorse, demonstrates understanding of what children need from a parent. The psychologist's opinion is that Nina has done the work to change her life, that her recovery appears stable and sincere. Reading this makes my chest feel tight. Part of me wants to hate Nina, to dismiss her progress and focus only on the threat she represents. But another part of me, the part that believes in second chances, can see that she's actually trying. She didn't have to get sober. She didn't have to work this hard to rebuild her life. She could have stayed where she was and given up. But she didn't. I look up at Kathy. She's watching me carefully. She asks how I'm feeling about this information. I tell her I don't know, that I'm angry she's threatening my family, but I can also see she's not the same person who lost her kids to foster care, that I wish she'd gotten better before now, before we were all in this mess. Kathy nods. She says this complicates things but doesn't change our core argument, that stability matters, that 3 years of consistent parenting can't be erased by 14 months of sobriety, that Mason and Ella's wishes have to count for something, but she's being realistic with me. This evaluation helps Nina's case, shows she's not just some addict trying to get her kids back on a whim. She's someone who might actually be capable of parenting now. By the time we hit 2 months into this legal battle, my savings account is almost empty. Kathy's retainer is gone. I'm paying her hourly now and the bills keep coming. Each court filing costs money. Each motion response costs money. The psychological evaluation cost money. I take out a loan against my car because I don't have any other options. The interest rate is terrible, but I'm desperate. I lie awake at night doing math in my head, trying to figure out how to make everything work. My phone rings during my lunch break on a Tuesday. It's the school. Mason got into another fight. This time it was serious enough that the principal wants me to come pick him up. I leave work immediately and drive to the school. The principal explains what happened in her office while Mason sits in a chair looking at the floor. A classmate asked Ella why she had a fake mom during recess. Mason overheard and shoved the kid, hard enough that the other boy fell and scraped his knee. The school has a zero-tolerance policy for physical violence. Mason is suspended for the rest of the day. The principal is sympathetic but firm. She understands there are difficult things happening at home, but Mason can't hurt other students. I apologize and promise to talk to him. We drive home in silence. Mason stares out the window. When we get to the apartment, I make us both hot chocolate and we sit on the couch. I ask him to tell me what happened in his own words. He says the kid called Ella a foster kid who doesn't have a real family. Said her real mom didn't want her. Mason's voice shakes when he tells me this. He says he couldn't just let someone talk about Ella like that he had to protect her. I tell him I understand why he was angry, that he was trying to defend his sister and that's good. But fighting isn't the answer. That words can hurt but hitting someone hurts more. That there are better ways to stand up for the people we love. He nods, but I can see the toll this is taking on him. He's 10 years old and he's carrying the weight of this custody battle on his shoulders. We spend the rest of the afternoon together. Order pizza. Watch a movie. I text Kathy to let her know about the suspension. She says we need to be careful. That any behavior problems at the school could be used against us in court. That we need to show Mason and Ella are stable and well-adjusted, not struggling. I want to scream that of course they're struggling. That anyone would struggle when their entire life is being threatened. But I know she's right. We have to be perfect right now. Even when perfect is impossible. The second supervised visit happens on a Saturday morning. I drive Mason and Ella to the same building across town. They're quieter this time. Less scared, but still anxious. The social worker meets us in the lobby again and takes them back to the visiting room. I settle into the same uncomfortable chair in the lobby and wait. And this time I bring a book but still can't focus enough to read. 90 minutes crawl by. When the door finally opens, Mason and Ella come out holding small gifts. Mason has a new sketchbook. Ella has a stuffed animal, a small dog with floppy ears. The social worker tells me the visit went well. That Nina was more careful about her language this time. Didn't push as hard or make claims about being their real mother. Just talked to them about school and their interests. Brought appropriate gifts. Tried to connect without overwhelming them. In the car, Ella surprises me by asking questions. She wants to know what Nina was like before. Before the drugs. Before she lost them. Why she couldn't take care of them back then. If she's really different now. I answer carefully. Tell her that Nina was sick with addiction. That it's a disease that makes people unable to care for others or themselves. That Nina lost them because she couldn't be a good mom while she was using drugs. That she's been working hard to get better, and she's been sober for over a year now. Ella processes this quietly. Then she asks if Nina wants them back because she loves them, or because she feels guilty. It's such an insightful question for an 8-year-old. I tell her honestly that I think it's probably both. That Nina probably does love them, and also feels guilty about what happened. That people can have complicated reasons for doing things. Mason speaks up from the back seat. He says the visit was okay. That Nina asked about his favorite subjects at the school and what he likes to draw. That she didn't make him feel bad or scared this time. But he still wants to stay with me. Still calls me mom and calls Nina by her first name. I tell him that's okay. That he gets to decide what feels right to him. The next therapy session with Thea happens 3 days after the second visit. I drop Mason and Ella off and wait in the lobby like usual. This time, Thea asks to work with Ella individually first. After 45 minutes, Thea comes out and asks me to join them for the last few minutes. Ella is sitting on the couch in Thea's office, hugging a pillow. Thea explains that they've been talking about Ella's feelings about having 2 mothers. The one who gave birth to her, and the one who takes care of her every day. She says Ella had a breakthrough today. Ella looks at me with tears in her eyes. She tells me she's scared that if she loves me, it means she's bad for not loving Nina. That if she loves Nina, it means she's betraying me. That she doesn't know how to feel about either of us without feeling guilty. Thea sits beside her and explains gently that Ella doesn't have to choose. That she can acknowledge Nina exists and even care about her without it meaning anything about her relationship with me. That loving me doesn't make her bad. That being curious about Nina doesn't make her disloyal. That she can have complicated feelings about both of us, and that's okay. Ella nods slowly. She asks if it's okay that she still wants to live with me even if Nina is trying to be better. Thea tells her yes. That what she wants matters. That she gets to have feelings about where she lives and who takes care of her. That those feelings are valid even if they're confusing. I pull Ella into a hug. Tell her she never has to feel guilty about loving me or about being curious about Nina. That I'm not going anywhere no matter what. That she's safe to feel however she feels. On the drive home, Ella seems lighter. Like something heavy has been lifted off her shoulders. She holds my hand and tells me she loves me. I tell her I love her too. More than anything. The following week, Kathy schedules a meeting with Nina's lawyer. His name is Luke and he works in the same building as Tom's main office, which tells me everything I need to know about who's really running this case. We meet in a conference room at Kathy's firm. Luke shows up in an expensive suit carrying a leather briefcase. He's younger than I expected. Maybe 40. He shakes hands with both of us and sits down across the table. Kathy starts by saying we're here to discuss potential settlement options, to see if there's a way to resolve this without going to a full custody trial. That trials are expensive and traumatic for everyone, especially the children. Luke nods. Then he says something that surprises me. He tells us that Nina has been expressing doubts about the case, that she's been questioning whether disrupting Mason and Ella's stability is actually in their best interest, that she sees how the legal battle is affecting them, and it's making her reconsider what she really wants. Kathy and I exchange glances. This is unexpected. Luke continues. He says Tom has been pressuring Nina to continue with the custody case, that he's using his financial support as leverage, threatening to cut her off if she doesn't push for full custody, that Nina is caught between wanting a relationship with her children and feeling obligated to the person funding her entire case. I ask Luke directly if Nina actually wants full custody, or if Tom is driving this whole thing. He hesitates, then admits that Nina's primary goal was just to have contact with Mason and Ella, to be part of their lives somehow. That Tom was the one who pushed for full custody, who hired Luke, who's been orchestrating the entire strategy. This changes everything. If Nina doesn't actually want to take the kids away, if she just wants to know them, then maybe we can work something out. Something that doesn't destroy the stability Mason and Ella finally have. Kathy asks what kind of arrangement Nina would consider. Luke says he'd need to talk to her more, but she's mentioned being open to a visitation agreement. Regular contact with the children without disrupting their primary home. A chance to build a relationship gradually without the pressure of a custody fight. We agree to think about it and reconvene in a few days. As we leave the building, Kathy tells me this could be the break we need. That if we can get Nina to agree to reasonable visitation instead of fighting for custody, we might be able to end this without a trial. I want to feel hopeful, but I'm scared to believe it. Tom won't let go this easily. He'll find another way to hurt me if this plan falls through. I spend 2 days thinking about Luke's revelation before I make my decision. Kathy needs to know what I'm planning. I call her office and ask for a meeting. She fits me in that afternoon. When I sit down across from her desk, I tell her I want to meet with Nina directly. No lawyers, just the two of us. Kathy sets down her pen and looks at me like I've lost my mind. She explains all the reasons this is a bad idea. Nina could record the conversation, use anything I say against me in court, twist my words, but I keep thinking about what Luke said, that Nina has doubts, that Tom is the one pushing this whole thing. If there's even a chance we can work something out without destroying the kids, I have to try. Kathy finally agrees, but makes me promise to meet in a public place and to text her before and after. I reach out to Luke and ask him to set it up. He calls back 2 hours later with a time and place. A coffee shop downtown. Neutral territory. The morning of the meeting, I barely sleep. I keep rehearsing what I'll say, how I'll explain what this is doing to Mason and Ella. I arrive 15 minutes early and pick a table in the back corner. My hands shake as I order coffee I know I won't drink. Nina walks in exactly on time. I recognize her from the court hearing, but seeing her up close is different. She's younger than I expected. Maybe 30. Thin in that way that makes me think recovery is still fragile. Her hair is pulled back in a ponytail and she's wearing jeans and a sweater that looks new. She spots me and walks over. We don't shake hands. Just sit down across from each other. For a long moment, neither of us speaks. Then Nina says she didn't think I'd actually agree to meet. I tell her I'm doing this for Mason and Ella, that they're the only thing that matters. She nods and looks down at her hands. I pull out my phone and open the photo album I prepared. Pictures of Mason and Ella over the past 3 years. Their first day of school, Halloween costumes, birthday parties, Ella learning to ride a bike, Mason's soccer games. I slide the phone across the table. Nina picks it up and starts scrolling. Her eyes fill with tears almost immediately. She stops on a photo of Ella holding a certificate from her school's reading program. Nina's hand is shaking. She asks if Ella likes to read now. I tell her Ella reads every night before bed, that we go to the library every Saturday, that she's working through the entire Magic Treehouse series. Nina keeps scrolling. She stops on a picture of Mason at his 10th birthday party. He's blowing out candles and his face is lit up with happiness. Nina starts crying for real. Not quiet tears, but the kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep. She sets the phone down and covers her face with her hands. I sit there feeling awkward and sad and angry all at once. When Nina finally looks up, her face is blotchy and her mascara is smudged. She tells me she can see how much they've grown, how happy they look, how different they are from the scared kids she lost. I don't say anything. Just wait. Nina takes a shaky breath and starts talking. She tells me Tom found her 6 months ago. She'd been clean for 8 months at that point, working at a grocery store, going to meetings, trying to build a life. Tom showed up at her apartment one day and told her he could help her get her kids back, that she deserved a second chance, that I was just a temporary guardian who didn't have any real claim to them. He offered to pay for everything, a better apartment, a lawyer, whatever she needed. Nina says she was so focused on proving she'd changed that she didn't stop to think about whether this was actually good for Mason and Ella. All she could think about was getting them back, showing everyone she wasn't the person who lost them anymore. I ask her if she considered what this would do to them. Nina looks away. She admits she didn't, that she was so caught up in her own need to prove herself that she didn't think about their stability, their happiness, the life they've built. I lean forward and tell her what the custody battle has done to them, how Mason started having nightmares again after the first visit, how he got into fights at the school, how Ella stopped talking for days, how they're terrified every single day that someone is going to take them away from the only home where they've ever felt safe. Nina's crying again. She keeps saying she's sorry, that she didn't know, that she didn't understand. I believe her. I don't want to, but I do. She's not evil, just broken in her own way, desperate to fix mistakes that can't be unfixed by taking kids away from the only stability they've ever known. Nina wipes her eyes and tells me something else. She pulls out her phone and opens her text messages with Tom. She shows me dozens of texts. Tom telling her I'm planning to move out of state, that I'm going to cut off all contact, that this custody case is her only chance to have a relationship with her children. The messages are manipulative and urgent, designed to make her panic, to push her into fighting harder. I read through them feeling sick. Tom has been playing both of us, using Nina to hurt me, using the kids as weapons. We both sit there in silence for a minute. Then Nina says something that surprises me. She asks if there's a way we could work together instead of fighting. If maybe she could have some kind of contact with Mason and Ella without taking them away from me, without destroying the stability they finally have. I tell her I don't know, that I'd need to think about it, talk to Kathy, figure out what that would even look like. But I'm willing to consider it if it means ending this battle before it destroys the kids completely. We exchange phone numbers. Nina thanks me for meeting with her, for showing her the photos, for helping her see what she was doing. I leave the coffee shop feeling confused and exhausted. I text Kathy that the meeting is over and I'm okay. Then I sit in my car for 20 minutes trying to process everything. The next day, Kathy and I meet with Luke again. This time, Nina is there too. We sit around the conference table and propose something different. Instead of fighting for full custody, what if we worked out a cooperative arrangement? I would keep full legal and physical custody. The kids would stay in their home with me. But Nina could have supervised visitation, a chance to build a relationship gradually, without pressure or fear. Luke and Kathy both look surprised, but they start taking notes. We spend 2 hours working through details. How often visits would happen, where they'd take place, how we'd increase contact over time if the kids were comfortable, what boundaries needed to exist. By the end of the meeting, we have the outline of an agreement. Kathy and Luke say they'll draft something formal and present it to the judge. Nina looks at me across the table and mouths thank you. I nod but don't smile. This doesn't make us friends. It just makes us two people trying to do right by kids who've been through enough. Tom finds out about our cooperation within days. Nina calls me panicking. He's threatening to cut off her financial support, to call her recovery sponsor and make accusations, to destroy everything she's built. I tell her to stand firm, that she doesn't need him, that she can do this without his money. Nina takes 3 days to make her decision. Then she calls Tom and tells him she's done, that she won't be used to hurt her children anymore. She finds a new apartment without his help, gets extra shifts at work, tells Luke she'll pay him herself even if it takes years. Tom's plan is falling apart because the two women he tried to turn against each other decided to become allies instead. The next court hearing is nothing like the first one. Nina and I walk in together. We present our proposed parenting plan to the judge. Kathy and Luke both speak in support of the agreement. Paul takes the stand and presents his recommendation. He says he's interviewed Mason and Ella multiple times, observed them at home and at the school, reviewed all the documentation. His recommendation is clear. I should maintain full custody. The kids are thriving in my care. They're bonded to me. Their stability should be protected. But he also acknowledges that supervised contact with Nina could be good for them if handled carefully, if they're given control over the pace, if there's no pressure. The judge listens to everything. Then she asks Nina directly if this is what she wants. Nina stands up and says yes, that she's learned the hard way that being a mother isn't about what she needs. It's about what's best for Mason and Ella, that they deserve to keep the life they've built. The judge looks pleased. She says she'll review the proposed agreement and issue a ruling within 3 weeks. As we're leaving the courthouse, Tom's lawyer approaches us in the hallway. He's carrying new paperwork. Tom has filed a motion for grandparent visitation rights, claiming he has a relationship with the children that should be protected. Kathy takes the papers and her jaw tightens. She tells me not to worry, that this is desperate, that it won't work. The hearing on Tom's motion happens a week later. Kathy comes prepared with everything: the restraining order documentation, the videos of Tom's abuse, the records of his violation at Ella's school, the evidence that he's been funding Nina's case purely for revenge. She presents Luke's communications with Tom that prove he was orchestrating the entire custody battle to hurt me. The judge's face gets harder with each piece of evidence. When Kathy finishes, the judge denies Tom's motion immediately. She tells his lawyer that Tom has no relationship with these children to protect, that his documented abuse and manipulation disqualify him from any contact. She warns that if he files any more frivolous motions, there will be consequences. Tom's lawyer gathers his papers and leaves without another word. 3 weeks after our court hearing, the judge issues her final order. I get the call from Kathy while I'm at work. She reads me the decision over the phone. I maintain full legal and physical custody of Mason and Ella. Nina gets a visitation schedule that starts with supervised sessions twice a month. After 6 months, if the kids are comfortable, visits can expand to include outings with me present. Everything is based on what Mason and Ella want. Their comfort level controls the pace. I thank Kathy and hang up. Then I sit at my desk and cry. Not sad tears. Relief. Nina texts me an hour later. She thanks me for giving her a chance to know her children, for saving them when she couldn't, for being willing to share instead of shutting her out completely. She promises to support their stability, to never push for more than they're ready to give. That night, I tell Mason and Ella the news. We sit on the couch together and I explain everything in simple terms. They're staying here with me. Forever. Nobody is taking them anywhere. But Nina can visit sometimes if they want. They get to decide how much and how often. Mason looks at me with those serious eyes and asks if I promise. I promise. Ella climbs into my lap and hugs me tight. She whispers that she was so scared. I hold both of them and tell them they never have to be scared again. Over the next few months, Nina's visits become part of our routine. We start at the supervised facility, just an hour every other week. Nina brings coloring books and puzzles. She asks them about school. She's careful not to push, not to call herself their mom, not to make them feel guilty or confused. Slowly, Mason and Ella start to relax around her. They stop looking at me nervously every few minutes. They answer her questions with more than one-word responses. After 3 months, we move to supervised outings. Nina meets us at a park. then a children's museum. I stay close but let them interact. I watch as they start to see her as a person, someone who cares about them, someone who made mistakes but is trying. Not a threat, just another adult in their complicated world. 6 months after the custody battle ends, we reach a milestone. Mason has a school play. He's playing a tree in the 3rd grade production of The Lorax. Nina asks if she can come watch. I talk to Mason first. Ask if he'd be okay with Nina being there. He thinks about it for a long time. Then he says yes. The night of the play, Nina sits beside me in the auditorium. We don't talk much. Just watch the kids on stage. Mason spots us together during his scene. His face breaks into this huge smile. After the play, he runs over and hugs us both. First me, then Nina. Ella watches this happen and something shifts in her face, like she's realizing it's okay. That loving me doesn't mean she can't acknowledge Nina exists. That having Nina there doesn't threaten her home. We all go out for ice cream after. Mason talks nonstop about his performance. Ella shows Nina the program where her artwork is featured. Nina listens and smiles and doesn't try to be more than what she is. A person who cares about them, who wants to know them, who respects that I'm their mom. On the drive home, Ella whispers to me that it felt good having Nina there without being scared. I squeeze her hand and tell her I'm proud of her, that she's so brave, that everything is going to be okay. Nina starts calling me every few weeks just to check in. At first, the conversations are short and awkward, both of us unsure what to say beyond updates about the kids. But slowly, something shifts. She asks my advice when Mason mentions wanting to try soccer, and she's not sure if she should offer to pay for equipment. I call her when Ella has a question about why she has Nina's green eyes but my brown hair. We become this strange team built on loving the same 2 kids and surviving the same terrible man. One afternoon, Nina texts asking if I know Mason's birth father's medical history, because a form at her new job requires family health information. I send her everything I have from the adoption records. She thanks me and adds that she's grateful I kept all those documents safe. The next week, I'm struggling with Ella's refusal to sleep in her own bed, and I find myself calling Nina without thinking. She listens and shares that Ella used to need a nightlight shaped like a star when she was a baby. I order one online that night and Ella loves it. The kids notice the change. Mason asks why Nina and I text each other now. I explain that we both care about him and his sister, so sometimes we talk about things that help us take better care of them. He considers this seriously, and then asks if that means we're friends. I tell him maybe something like that. Ella overhears and says it's good we don't fight because fighting makes her stomach hurt. I pull her close and promise that Nina and I won't fight. We're on the same team now. Mason's teacher calls me in for a conference and I expect bad news. Instead, she tells me his nightmares have stopped completely. She noticed because he used to come to the school exhausted every Monday after weekend visits. But now he arrives energized and focused. He volunteered to give a presentation about different types of families for their social studies unit. He included a poster with pictures of me and Nina, along with facts about adoption and biological parents. The other kids asked good questions, and Mason answered them confidently. His teacher says she's never seen such a mature understanding of complex family situations from a 10-year-old. I attend Ella's therapy session with her that week, and watch as she talks openly with Thea about feeling confused sometimes. She draws a picture of our house with her, Mason, and me inside, then adds Nina standing in the yard waving. Thea asks what the picture means, and Ella explains that Nina is part of their life, but not their everyday life, like a neighbor who visits sometimes. Thea tells me after the session that Ella's ability to process these complicated emotions shows remarkable growth. The custody battle could have broken her, but instead it taught her that people can be complicated and relationships don't have to fit simple categories. 3 months after everything settled, my phone rings with a number I don't recognize. I answer and hear Tom's voice asking if I'll hear him out. My whole body goes cold. He says he wants to apologize, that he's been in therapy and realizes he was wrong. I hang up without responding. My hands shake as I call Kathy and tell her what happened. She documents everything and sends a letter to his lawyer reminding them about the restraining order. Any contact, even by phone, violates the court order. Nina texts me that evening saying Tom tried calling her too from a different number. He told her he wanted to make amends and asked if she'd consider letting him be involved with the kids as some kind of uncle figure. She blocked the number immediately and filed a police report. She tells me she's learned that some people don't deserve second chances, that real change means respecting boundaries, not pushing past them. I feel this surge of gratitude that she understands, that she's protecting Mason and Ella too. Kathy files a motion to strengthen the restraining order and the judge grants it without hesitation. Tom's lawyer doesn't even show up to contest it. I wonder if Tom's running out of money or if his lawyer finally got tired of his games. Either way, the message is clear. Tom has no place in our lives and the legal system backs that up. A year passes faster than I expected. The custody crisis feels like something that happened to different people in a different lifetime. Mason and Ella are thriving in ways I couldn't have imagined during those dark months when everything felt uncertain. I start thinking about something I'd put on hold when Tom's revenge plot began. There are so many kids who need homes. Our family has room for one more. I talked to Mason and Ella first, asking how they'd feel about adopting another sibling. Mason's face lights up immediately. He asks if we can adopt a boy because he's tired of being outnumbered by girls. Ella wants to know if the new kid will be scared like they were, and if they can help make the new kid feel safe. Their enthusiasm makes my decision easy. The process takes months of paperwork, home visits, and meetings with social workers. I'm matched with a 6-year-old boy named James whose parents died in a car accident. He's been in foster care for 8 months, bouncing between homes. When I meet him, he reminds me so much of Mason that first night. All guarded eyes and careful movements like he's waiting for the other shoe to drop. The finalization hearing happens on a Tuesday morning. Mason and Ella come with me to court, both dressed up and excited. When the judge declares James officially part of our family, Mason whoops loudly and Ella claps. James looks overwhelmed, but he's smiling. We go out for pancakes after, and James asks if this means he really gets to stay forever. I tell him yes, forever, no matter what. Nina sends a package to the house that arrives the next day. Inside is a children's book about blended families and a card welcoming James. She writes that watching me parent has taught her what real love looks like, that it's not about biology or perfection, but about showing up every day and choosing to fight for your kids. Mason reads the card over my shoulder and says, "Nina is nice now." Ella adds that Nina learned to be better, like how James is learning their house rules. On the anniversary of that terrible phone call from Tom's lawyer, I wake up before the kids and sit with my coffee thinking about how far we've all come. Mason no longer has nightmares. Ella talks about her feelings instead of shutting down. Nina visits twice a month and the kids look forward to seeing her without fear or confusion. James is settling in, starting to believe this home is permanent. Our family doesn't look like anything I imagined 3 years ago when I first brought Mason and Ella home, but it works beautifully for the people who matter most.